Hello, world, and thanks for continuing to watch this series. In this next section, we're going to cover the question, why are positions opened? This is an important section because we're going to help you think about the interview process and to think about the whole hour-long interview that you spend with each manager in a different way. I want you to think about the interview from the perspective of the manager, not from the perspective of the candidate. Which leads me to the first question. Why do you think positions are opened in the first place? Is it to get a job? Is that your answer? Well, typically that's the answer that I get from candidates when I ask them this question, when I'm training them in this material. It seems obvious. Look, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't looking for a job. Maybe I'm in the process of moving teams. Maybe I want to move elsewhere in the company, or maybe I'm currently out of work and look, I need to pay my bills. So, isn't the goal to get the job? My answer is no. But to understand first why this is the case, we need to understand the factors that contribute to why positions are open in the first place. First, projects are behind schedule. If the project wasn't behind schedule, chances are you'd have enough time to complete the work given the resources that your team already has. But typically that's not the case. Projects that are behind schedule, they need to hire somebody into a role to contribute to the overall effort in order to ship that product. The second reason that contributes to positions being opened is that the team is understaffed. If we had enough employees, if we had enough resources able to do the work, we wouldn't need to hire somebody into this position. See, teams don't want to just spend money. The goal isn't for the team to spend money. The goal is for the project to be successful. And they would not open that position unless they really needed to. Now, the third factor that contributes to positions being opened is that the project is over budget. See, it doesn't kind of make sense, does it? When I first realized this, I was like, wait, how does the budget of the project factor into positions being opened? You'd think, look, we need to save money. We're already over budget. But instead, think of it this way. The entire team is being paid every single day in order to complete that work, and any additional help to come in and help that project be successful, to meet its goals, meet its deadlines, it's going to cost less money if they get somebody into that role immediately. So these three factors, the project being behind schedule, understaffed, and over budget, contribute to why positions are opened in the first place. And what are we talking about here? What's at risk? The project. So this is important because the word risk is critical for you to change your perspective about why you're there in the first place. Because risk is what the manager has to consider to extend an offer to you. Let's talk more about the hiring decision. What are the possible outcomes of the interview? You either get hired or you don't get hired, right? It seems like a very binary response, like a very binary way to look at it. But in fact, the decision, the factors that play into whether or not you are going to get an offer is not black and white. See, I've seen candidates who met all the requirements not get an offer, and I've seen candidates who don't meet all the requirements for a position get an offer. So what's the difference? Why is that the case? Again, it comes back to the risk, that the manager has evaluated the risk of the candidate and was able to make the decision that bringing them onto the team was going to improve the chances that the project was going to be successful. Now, are you guaranteed to get an offer if you answer all the questions correctly? Are you guaranteed you won't get an offer if you can't answer all the questions correctly? It depends. It's not black and white. It's somewhere in between. And the decision to hire you is based on the risk that you end up communicating in the interview, and the manager ends up evaluating, and that's at the end of the day, the manager is going to be able to sit down and go, oh, yeah, this candidate, I think they're going to be good for this project because they're going to be able to contribute in this capacity, in this way, to what our efforts are. And that's when you get an offer. So the decision to hire you is actually about risk assessment. The manager is assessing the risk of extending you an offer. And if that's the case, and if extending you an offer is based on how much risk the manager has to own to give you an offer, then what is the goal of the interview? If the goal of the interview isn't about getting a job, but instead, from the manager's perspective, is about the risk, then your goal in the interview is to help mitigate the risk the manager needs to own to extend you an offer for the position. Now, this is a very important point, and I'm going to say it again. The goal of the interview is to mitigate the risk the manager needs to own to extend you an offer. So, seems natural. The next step, how do we mitigate risk? Well, the good news is the future following videos that you will be able to watch will cover this in great detail. Specifically, the next section, we're going to be covering about the attitudes of the interviewer and the candidate. And then after that, we're going to cover core patterns mitigating risk. So, stay tuned. Remember, the purpose and the goal of the interview isn't about you getting a job. Now, the interview is about you, but it's not about you getting a job. It doesn't matter how much you want it. There were so many positions that I struggled to perform well in the interview in order to get a job that I really, really wanted. And these patterns, these core ideas that we're going to be covering in the next sections will help shed some light on how you can mitigate the risk the manager needs to own to give you an offer. All right, in the next section, join me when we talk about the candidate and the interviewer motivations.